episode of Surviving the Survivor, we bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
Wendi. Katherine Magbanua filed an appeal in her murder conviction, and although it was denied in doing so, she seemed to be pointing the finger straight at Wendi Adelson. Let's look at the facts. It was Wendi Adelson's brother, Charlie Adelson, convicted. Her acquaintance, Katherine Magbanua, through the brother, convicted. Katie's ex, Alfredo Garcia, convicted. His buddy, Luis Rivera, convicted. And now Wendi's mother, Donna Adelson, about to go on trial. They got that continuance, but we're getting it going. As far as we know, August 19th. So what exactly is Katherine Magbanua saying in this appeal that was filed? She doesn't come right out and say it, but essentially she's saying Wendi basically had something to do with this in so many words, per Katherine Magbanua. We did reach out to Katie's attorney. She's unable to speak to us. We all know by now where there is smoke, there is fire. So what's up, STS Nation? Welcome to Surviving the Survivor. It is the show that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime. Tonight, we're going to break down this Katherine Magbanua appeal. We're also going to look at the state's exhibit list, a.k.a. Georgia Kappelman, Sarah Catherine Dugan. They have submitted their exhibit list for the trial, and here we go. You know her well. She is the professor without Marianne Gilligan and the rest, but it's all we need is the professor. Coming to us live from across the pond, she is Joe Patuto, professor emeritus, University of Nebraska Law School. Next up, our good friend, the bearded lobbyist. He is Jared Ross, a former good friend of Dan Markel and Wendi Adelson, no longer friends with Wendi, but Jared himself, an undergraduate of FSU, go Noles, and a graduate of the FSU School of Law, and his wife handles appeals. So there you go. Jared might be able to weigh in. So, Professor, I need to start with you since you are the professor. And then if I started with Jared, people would say, why didn't you start with the professor? So, Professor, the appeal is denied, but there were some interesting things in there that we are going to break down. I guess no real surprise. I assume you would have been a lot more surprised if it was granted, but it was denied.
Right. I didn't think there was anything in the appeal that they made that would have resulted in a reversal. And in fact, a couple of things that her lawyers raised on her behalf were not raised at trial. So those were non-starters before the appellate court. So no surprise at all that the appeal was turned down.
Yeah. It has been an absolutely crazy week in the world of true crime between Sean Diddy Combs, the poor firefighters in Idaho that were ambushed, then Brian Koberger. If you missed it last night, we had the legend Ann Burgess on. It was amazing to talk to her one-on-one for basically an hour and 30 minutes. And that show is posted. The COE has cut some clips from there as well. And there you go. Court Junkie, Katie became a YouTube member. Thank you, Katie R. Welcome to the new members, and we're getting a lot of new ones. So great to have them here. Someone says, great to see Ruth and Jared. That's not Ruth. That's Joe Patuto. But I talked to Ruth via email, and she's doing well and awaiting this trial, as are Phil and Shelly, who are Dan's father and sister. And again, it's always the victims who get dragged through the mud with all this. So some anxious times for all of them. But Katherine Magbanua, of course, she was convicted of first-degree murder in the death of Dan Markel. She's going to remain in prison serving life without parole. The other counts that she faced that she was convicted for were conspiracy to commit murder and solicitation to commit murder. And I got to say, Jared, every time we talk about Katie, there is a part of me, I want to say something. I mean, there's a part of me that just shakes my head. Like it's almost a sympathetic head shaking. You know, she was convicted. She was involved. She was the go-between. But she comes across as almost this clueless sort of woman caught in the middle who had a chance at at immunity and a plea deal. Didn't take it. It's hard to believe she is going to spend the rest of her life, it seems like, in state prison in Florida.
Yeah, I agree that there tends to be a little more of a sympathetic feeling towards her when you think about how everything went down, but at the same time, she is a large reason why Dan's no longer with us. And so I have no actual sympathy for her, but when you start to think about the levels of involvement and the levels of guilt, you tend to look at her and feel like she was manipulated into something and now is paying for it essentially with her life, because she is going to spend the rest of her life in prison unless somehow she gets some sort of a reduced sentence for testifying against Charlie, and should she testify against anyone else in the future. But where we stand right now, after this was denied, she is going to spend the rest of her life in prison.
Yeah, I guess I'm an empath. I guess I'm a sucker because you kind of look at her. She looks harmless, but obviously was a part of setting this all up. But to Jared's point, Joe Patudo, do you think she does spend the rest of her life? And we're going to get into the appeal in a minute and the particulars of the appeal. But do you think she ends up spending the rest of her natural life? Because as we know in Florida, life is life. Is she going to only leave with the toe tag around her big toe?
Yeah, let me say first, I don't have a whole lot of sympathy for her at all, because I think she was more than sort of carried along with the conspiracy to murder. I think she was an integral part of it. I think she talked Sigfredo into it. He had no reason to do anything, and she wheedled and got him, to become involved. So I think she's a major player. I have no sympathy for her in that way. Whether she'll spend the rest of her life in prison depends on whether, at the end of all this, the state decides to give her some sort of reduction some way in her sentence. She's not going to get it out of the courts because I don't think she had an appealable issue. And she can go on appealing. She can do what would be known as a collateral attack and a habeas corpus petition. But I don't see any reason or anything in the record that would indicate that she would prevail. So I think her only chance, and I can't assess whether it's a good one or a bad one, is if the state decides to do something.
Yeah, good point. I guess, Carm, if you're watching, you raised me like a snowflake. I'm soft. I shouldn't be. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Carm, look at this. I was just going to ask the same question. Lee T beat me to it. Thank you to Snap Happy for that super chat. Does Carm have any sympathy for Donna? Carm, if you're in the chat, I know you're watching. Don't pretend you're not. The last thing Carm said to me, I was just on the phone with her, was an insult. I gave her some good news. And she said, anytime you tell me that, I don't buy it. Someone just said they don't believe Katie Magbanua. Well, Carm never believes me. So Carm and I have a thing. She says something to me and my toes curl in my sneakers. Well, when I just got off the phone with her, my toes were curled in my sneakers. And I sometimes have to bite my hand because she drives me crazy. But Carm, I still love you. You're my mom. I guess, I don't know. Jared, do your parents ever make you want to bite your hand?
Yeah, I'm sure they do. I'm sure there are times, I love my parents to death. They're phenomenal, and I'm just happy they're still around.
Yeah, and something tells me that your parents are probably a lot more gentle and sweet. Carm is a little more abrasive at times. By the way, we're still doing Leave a Comment, our new show. It's just, I'm told, for algorithmic purposes, I'm not allowed to do it on our channel. So we're going to create. Carmela says, I am not watching. Exclamation mark. There you go. Kelly Sanford, thank you for this. I appreciate it. So let's dig into this. What did Katie Magbanua argue in the appeal? Someone just said it takes a cold person to set up someone else's unaliving. That's for damn sure. You're looking at the appeal here, which doesn't do a whole lot because it's just text, but this is the body of the appeal. But one of the points that Katie Magbanua's team makes in there is that the trial court, and I'll start with you, Professor, the trial court did not evaluate Wendi Adelson's Fifth Amendment invocations during her deposition. And it reads, Magbanua has not demonstrated prejudicial error. She had the benefit of not just Adelson's deposition testimony, but also her testimony from the first trial. In the second trial, Wendi Adelson answered all questions asked by Magbanua. So the court is essentially saying the Fifth Amendment, whatever they did with the Fifth Amendment, was kosher, not unkosher, but you'll explain this a lot better than me. Joe,
Yeah,
I think you're yeah, go ahead.
Okay. She deposed Wendi, and she also had the opportunity to cross-examine Wendi. The issue in all this is Wendi Adelson had the right to invoke a Fifth Amendment privilege, claiming that some of her answers might tend to incriminate her. The state, if the state gave her a level of immunity for testifying on behalf of the state, and the state can't use anything that she says. The defense doesn't have a similar way to require that Wendi testify on their behalf or answer particular questions in the deposition because they cannot offer her immunity. So their claim was that the judge did not do an adequate job to evaluate whether Wendy's claims of Fifth Amendment privilege with regard to questions and answers were validly asserted. And the appeals court said, in part, you didn't show us the deposition. So, you didn't attach it. So in part, we can't evaluate. And you had the chance to cross-examine her when she was a witness. And you did depose her. And so there's no merit to this argument.
Hey, Jared, how'd you do in law school? Like with Joe talking right now, I got to be honest, I just had like a little anxiety rush through my veins. I would definitely probably fell out of law school, but how did you focus there when your law professor was telling you stuff like she just explained?
I think you're so focused on taking notes and trying to take in everything that the professor says that you have to be paying attention. I think nowadays there's the benefit that students have the ability to look things up a lot more online than I probably did when I was in law school.
Yeah.
We definitely had internet and all that when I was in law school, but it was not as prevalent. We didn't have Chat GPT or anything like that. But you also know that at any moment in law school, especially your 1L year, that they're going to call on you at any moment and you have to be paying attention. That's not to say that there weren't times I got caught not paying attention or we were busy at the time. AOL Instant Messenger was a big thing and the whole class would be AI, messaging during class. So if you got called on and you didn't know the answer, sometimes you just look down at your screen and hope one of your buddies, sent you the answer. But
who did better, you or your wife?
Hard to know. So we both did well enough to transfer after our 1L years, which is not the easiest thing in the world. You have to be typically in the top 10% of your class to be able to transfer. And it's hard because after you transfer, you lose your 1L grades. So they all end up becoming pass fail. And so then it's just based on your last 2 years. But we both did really well. And we both passed the bar. That's what matters most.
100%. So here's more of the appeal here. Second, this is the per the appeal. Professor, to you, Magbanua argues that the trial court erred in granting Adelson's motion for protective order to quash the subpoena for her appearance at the deposition. This argument is moot after this court dismissed Magbanua's petition for writ of certiorari to quash the order. Blah, 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 blah. The trial court granted her motion for reconsideration. Adelson was deposed. I can't even. What is being said here, Professor?
I'll say first that I don't understand this claim on appeal at all. What she says is that initially the trial court said she could not depose Wendi Adelson because she didn't have to go to the deposition and it was on the basis of the Fifth Amendment privilege. She appealed it to the appellate court and the appellate court agreed with the trial that the trial court did not have to order Wendi Adelson to appear. But then the trial court granted the motion after reconsideration, and Wendi Adelson was deposed by Magbanua's lawyers. And so then the court says, so it's moot. So I don't understand why in the world this ended up in the appeal at all. I mean, this is no harm, no foul. The judge said no, and then the judge said yes, and they got the opportunity to do what they wanted to do. And the fact that he first said no, I don't see has any legs at all. So I don't understand this one. But that's the explanation here.
How do you appeal something that you were then allowed to do? Like you were then allowed to do? That's asinine.
Right. Yeah. And by the way, Jared, do you know Betsy Burgess?
I sure do.
Yeah. Look, and she said we had
I know Betsy well.
There you go. Welcome,
She's
Betsy.
a good friend here in Tallahassee, and she's a great attorney.
Betsy, spread the word. Come on the show. Email me, Surviving the Survivor. Get in contact through Jared, and we'll get you on the show as a best guest.
She's awesome.
What kind of attorney is she? Let's throw her under the bus.
She does litigation.
Yeah. Well, you know enough about this case, Betsy, so come on the show. We will bring you on. Look at this. This is always fascinating.
She's going to text me. I'll bet you she's going to text me too.
Hey, Joel, I've been with you since the beginning, and I'm all about justice for Dan. I've never seen Kathy Moore's name, and I would remember. I never forget a face. I could see someone once, and 20 years later, I will remember the face, but I will never remember a name. So there you go. Jared, I mean, basically what Joe's talking about, what some of this is saying is that the court says that Magbanua had plenty of access to Wendi Adelson's testimony. So no harm, no foul. Is that like a simpleton's way of looking at it?
Yeah. No harm, no foul is exactly it.
Yeah. So there we go. Joe, I guess one of the questions now is like right now, is Wendi legally protected in any way headed into this trial? I mean, is she's going to get that same sort of immunity? What's going on with Wendi right now?
Yeah, I can't imagine that she's not. They want her testimony the same way they wanted her testimony in the other trials. She's got a Fifth Amendment privilege that's already been acknowledged by the trial judge, that she cannot be compelled to say something that might tend to incriminate her. So to get her to testify this time, as with the other times, they have to give her a limited immunity, which covers anything she says when she testifies. And it also covers anything that they might derive or get to only because she testified. That's what she got the last couple of times. That's what she's going to have to get this time, or she can say, no, I won't testify.
Yeah. Another part of this, I guess, the court, according to the appeal, the court erred. This is what is said or claimed by Magbanua, that the court erred by not granting a state motion to bar calling witnesses like Wendi, who would invoke the Fifth, but the appellate court comes out and says, and I quote here, because Magbanua did not join in the state's motion, she cannot now complain that the trial court erred in not granting the motion. I mean, Jared, that's another fairly obvious, I guess, assertion by the court here, ruling on the appeal, basically saying you didn't join in, so how can you complain about it? Correct?
You're basically filing an appeal off something that you didn't lose. So they are not the ones that made the motion in limine. The state is not arguing that the trial court erred in that, and they were not party to that motion, and therefore, hey, too bad, so sad. You're not getting conviction overturned on something that was not prejudicial to you.
Jared, what's it like for you to look at pictures of Wendi now, not having been fronted?
Yeah, I'm so used to seeing these pictures at this point and separating who I knew back then for who she is now. For me, I think it's more surreal seeing pictures of Danny than it is seeing pictures of Wendi, because when I see when I think of Wendi at this point, I now think of her more as the witness in a murder trial than I do as the person that I was friends with for many, many years.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. It's kind of eerie to look at it, I guess.
Yeah.
Not Dan, but I mean Dan too, but Wendi kind of freaks me out, I guess.
I
Go
think
ahead.
I think it's also surreal. About a month, we have our 30-year high school reunion coming up, and I think it's surreal to look at pictures of Charlie and know the folks that we all graduated high school with together are going to be gathering in about, a month and a week, and he's in prison in South Dakota. It's strange.
That is really weird to like someone that who's now serving life in prison. Thankfully I don't think I know anyone personally, but that is very weird. I mean, how popular was he at Charlie in high school? Was he popular or just kind of
No,
let it? Yeah.
no, in high school, he was known, but I certainly wasn't popular either. I was a new kid sophomore year of high school, so I kind of moved into a high school where everyone already had their friends. But I knew who he was, and we knew each other. But I wouldn't say that he was, part of that popular crew at all.
Okay. So Joe, just back to this appeal now. I'll break this down a little more, and then we've got the state's exhibit list, what Georgia and Sarah Catherine Dugan are going to bring to the table when this trial starts. But the appeals court basically says that Katie Magbanua's team failed to provide a transcript of Wendi Adelson's Fifth Amendment deposition. So when she was deposed on the Fifth Amendment, I guess the question is, in terms of a procedural misstep, is this something that Katie can now bring back up and blame her own legal team for?
Well, what she'll have to do is claim ineffective assistance to counsel, appellate counsel this time, I think, because it was a failure to attach the transcript to the appeal. So sure, she can do it. It will be a collateral attack. In other words, it will be after the direct appeals run, she will come into a trial court and assert that as evidence that she was prejudiced by the fact that the deposition was not attached, so that the court would not look at it. She can do it. I don't see much merit to it at all.
We've got some sound of, I believe, Katie's trial that I'm going to play in a minute. But Jared, since you did know Wendi personally, I mean, what do you make of the fact that in this Magbanua appeal, it's almost all centered around Wendi? It's not really the state or the evidence, and they're not finger pointing that way. They're pointing Wendy's direction. What do you make of that?
I don't make too much of it because these are very procedural issues. They're not necessarily about what Wendi did or did not testify. Although I do think when you look deeper at it, there are probably questions that they wanted to ask Wendi on the stand that they were afraid she would take the Fifth Amendment on, or in deposition. And that's part of what I think they're getting at here, is they're trying to say Wendi Adelson knows more than Wendi Adelson is giving up. So it'll be interesting to see if Katie is a witness in Donna's trial and what she says.
And Joe,
one other thing I find interesting too, though, is you notice Tara Kawas is listed as one of her attorneys on appeal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Again, we actually reached out to try to get comment, but she's not able to speak. So yeah, or that's
hard to argue ineffective assistance to counsel when you're still using that counsel.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually. All kidding aside, yeah, it's a good point. But yeah, Steve did reach out to Tara. Tara's not able to comment, she tells us. So I'm not sure why with this behind us, but I mean, Joe, are they going to what legally? What's the recourse now? Can they appeal a different way, Joe?
This was before the appellate court, so they've got a right to try to appeal to the Florida State Supreme Court. And then if they lose there, which I fully expect will happen, then they have a right to go into, I believe Florida, and Jared, you can correct me if I'm wrong, has a post-conviction relief process where you can go into a state court and say there were constitutional errors that happened at trial. And the big one they're going to do is say ineffective assistance of counsel. And that led to the other errors that the appellate courts wouldn't look at. And if they don't prevail there, they can appeal that decision to the district court and theoretically to the Florida Supreme Court. And then they can go into a federal court and raise a federal habeas corpus motion on the same claim, that there was ineffective assistance to counsel. And because of the ineffective assistance to counsel, they lost the opportunity to make meritorious claims. And I don't think any of those are going to win, because you can't just, the fact of, first you have to show that the assistance was really ineffective. And I don't know that they'll be able to show that. But secondly, you have to show that but for that error, the result at trial or the result at appeal might have been different. And I don't see how they can make that showing.
Look at this. Professor Joe has the most amazing mind from pickleball. But that's what happens when you've been a law professor since the 1970s. You get pretty sharp. I bet you she'd like kick our asses and like what do you play, any card games, Joe? You like a mahjong? Someone told me that mahjong is COE told me, mahjong used to be like the old ladies game, and now it's like a hip, like all the kids are now playing mahjong. But Joe, do you do anything?
Mahjong leagues all over Tallahassee. It's crazy.
Do they? Yeah. Like what is going
crazy
on there? Yeah, I don't even know what mahjong is. I have no idea.
Nor do I.
Yeah, I've never, look at this. Best Nancy. I love mahjong. Carm was sort of Carm plays rummy cue. That's probably a poor woman's mahjong. But if anyone's a mahjong fan, look at this. Mahjong is in the country club scene. Good thing I'm not at any country club. Oh, that was hip in the 20s and 30s. But someone said
my mom used to play mahjong with her friends.
Did she? Maybe we should get Jared's
we lived
mother
in New
on.
Jersey.
Yeah, that's you know what that sounds like. That sounds like a Marlboro, New Jersey.
Oh, absolutely.
Sort of. Yeah. Look at this. Mahjong is huge in Toronto. What is Mahjong? Tattletales. Mahjong is fun. Someone here said, Missy Cohen, look at this. Rummy Cube is the best. It started in Israel. Carm plays that, and there's a woman, shout out to Regina. They call her the mayor in the building. Regina knows everyone, and she kicks Carm's ass in Rummy Cube, and Carm gets really upset and vows to beat her. But Carm is sharp, so I have a feeling that Carm is going to Carm's probably secretly studying and will try to crush Regina the next time they play. This is a COE. I have a mahjong tournament on Tuesday. Look at this. Carm told me the 90-year-old woman in Miami Beach are fierce on the mahjong table. This is true. This is like rhubarb or whatever the other conversation was. I have no idea what mahjong is. I'm just glad that I'm not forced to play it. That's all I know. Okay. Enough of that. By the way, Joe Patuto, I took my kid to see Real Madrid versus Juventus. You can tell we did 4 shows yesterday. I'm losing my mind today. Juventus is an Italian soccer team. So amazing to watch football, soccer. These goalies, that we were watching them warm up. They were kicking the ball, drop kicking the ball from one goal to another. How long is this? Does anyone know how long a soccer field is, Joe, Jared?
No idea.
Got to be, I don't know, much longer than the football field is my guess.
Idea.
Anyway, they made it.
Didn't you come up to New Jersey for the finals?
Yeah, it's at the Meadowlands. Yeah.
And South Jersey before that, they're doing the rounds before in South Jersey.
Oh, by the way, I'm trying to get World Cup tickets. Those are really hard to get. We digress here quite a bit, but what I was going to say earlier, if you're part of STS Nation, I always say best guest, better community. It even says it behind me. So if you have any Dan Markel show ideas, you can email them to us, survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com. I want to include the community and any other show ideas. Feel free to send them in. I try to answer everybody's email, as does the COE. I thought old Chinese ladies played mahjong. I have no idea. Did it start in China? I have no idea at all. But to get me out of this jam that I'm in, I'm playing mahjong on my phone while listening to this. I'm going to play this. This is from Katie's trial. It's a 5-minute little chunk of sound here, and we're going to play it with Wendi on the stand. The fact that Wendy's entire fam is going down for her benefit is absurd. They should all gang up on Wendi and all testify against her, according to Only Reels. Be wild to see that happen. But here we go. This is a sound. Again, it's about 5 minutes long. I'll stop it. We'll get reaction and then continue on with some more appeals questions from Katie Magbanua and then get into the exhibit list. Here we go.
Thank you. Adelson, this is all about you, isn't it?
Excuse me?
This is all about you, right?
I was called to be a witness and I'm testifying, so I don't understand the question. Is it a question?
There's about 100 people in this courtroom, right?
There are people in the courtroom.
Possibly thousands watching, right?
I have no idea who's watching.
And it's all because of your failed marriage, right?
I disagree with that.
You disagree that your ex-husband is dead because of your family.
Yes, I disagree.
These jurors are here for weeks doing their civic duty because of your marriage, right?
No.
Katie's going through this ordeal because of that marriage, right?
No.
Dan Markel's parents are going through absolute misery because of your failed marriage. Isn't that right?
No, that's incorrect.
Well, let's talk about the marriage. You and Professor Markel, you met when you...
I'm going to hold it right there, and we're going to get into the marriage. Jared, I just want to get, Tim Jansen always tells us that trials are theater, and this is pretty theatrical. You've got the defense attorney walking around and literally pointing the finger right at Wendi Adelson. What do you make of this whole exchange and the way Wendi tried to handle it?
Well, I think it shows her arrogance, the way she answers questions, the way she tries to make everybody else feel, I don't know, stupid is the word, but it sure comes off that way. And we're not stupid. We understand that no matter whether she believes her family was involved or not, there's no way that she can deny that what happened between her and Dan is the reason that this all took place. And her answer, when she's like, no, I don't believe that. Okay, we know you believe that, and we all believe that. We all know that. She's just trying to be manipulative like always. And it just, every time I see this and every time I see her testify, I get I get angrier at myself for ever thinking she didn't have anything to do with this.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Don't beat yourself up, Jared. Some of
No,
us,
it's just, I'm just like, it's so clear now.
Look at this, Chris DeCoste. We miss you, the defense attorney. Yeah, it's interesting. Dr. Katherine Ramsland taught Brian Koberger, and she was interviewed. She was supposed to be on our show last night, but she said she had, to your point that you didn't see it. She is a criminology professor, very well-known one. And she said she never saw basically an inkling of what Brian Koberger had inside of him, the potential to do what he did. So can't blame yourself for that. But T. Cancella here, your family does not tell you, what does it say? Ned Smith says your family does not tell, I can't read it.
Off your husband.
Off your husband.
Your husband without your full, no. Oh, I see. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, my eyesight is failing me. I should probably get into a hospital soon or get glasses, one or the other. But Joe Patuto, just weigh in here before we go on. This is pretty dramatic. If you're showing this to your law school students, this first part of this exchange, what are you trying to? I guess what's the point you're trying to bring home with them?
Well, I'm more interested in her responses than his questions. He's trying to testify through her denials. Lawyers are not supposed to testify. Juries are not supposed to take anything that the lawyer says as evidence of anything. But this is the way that he is trying to get in his information that it was her family that was responsible for Dan Markel's death and that she had a role in it without her saying anything, because what she's doing is saying no, no, no. But it's the way to make the point with the jury. What I find interesting about her is her answers are kind of like, butter wouldn't melt in her mouth when she's doing it. And I find her answers really jarring in terms of her credibility. I don't know whether that's widely shared, but it is the way I react to her. And I'm just wondering whether she is reviewing this time around her testimony in the previous trials and trying to learn from it so that the way she answers the next time won't be the way she's answering here, which is this kind of sweet, you know, I don't really know what you're talking about. It just doesn't play well with me.
Yeah, it's like ignorance is bliss. What, Jared, what do you know her? Do you think she's actually going to sit there and study the way she testified in previous trials and try to fix it? Or do you think in her mind, she's like, oh, I'm great. She just said there are people in the room when he said there are literally thousands watching this and maybe tens of thousands. I don't know. But when she responds to him and goes, there are people in the room. I mean, it's super arrogant to your point. But do you think that she's the kind of person who would go back and actually try to improve on her testimony?
I think she will. I think her attorney will probably tell her to review her prior testimony, one for consistency's purposes to make sure she says the same thing. Although you would have thought that to be the case, she's now testified in what, 3 trials, and I think she's told 3 different stories about driving by Prescott. But I do believe she will review the testimony. I don't know that it'll change the way she testifies because she is who she is. And I do believe that she thinks she's the smartest person in that room. So she's going to be able to manipulate. But at this point, maybe she is learning and thinking she has to be different. I just don't foresee her changing who she is.
We're going to get to her answer in a second, but from back to Jared here from Gia and TJ's mom. Jared, since you know Wendi, did she always think she was smarter than everyone? Because that's definitely the vibe that she's given off.
Yeah, I would say she did. She always came across as someone who wanted to be looked at as very intelligent. She always used SAT words, being very intelligent when she spoke, but it never really came across as super arrogant and condescending like it does now. And I think part of that is probably because she's just so I don't I don't want to say she's so tired of all this, but she's probably so mentally exhausted from all of it.
Mhm.
And I don't feel bad for her about that at all. She should be mentally exhausted and she should be tortured from all of this, but that's probably part of what's going on.
Yeah, it does have to be absolutely, I mean, tiring and exhausting. For her, I feel zero
Done.
empathy, unlike maybe Katie Magbanua, where I feel maybe a touch, but with her, none. But I just imagine like having to look over your shoulder every second of every day, knowing that that clock is ticking. She might, if it does happen and she is eventually arrested, and I'm not saying it's a definitive thing that's going to happen, but if it does, she might almost feel relieved. I've heard people say that, criminals who are eventually the law catches up with, that it's almost a relief. Our people that we've interviewed, Larry Levine, who's a former inmate, said that. Jared, do you think that Wendi being valedictorian at your high school was kosher? I'm not sure. What? I don't
Yeah,
know.
she was 2 grades below me, so I don't think I ever had a class with her in high school, but I would I'm sure she probably did something, looked at an answer on a test, or I think we all did when we were in high school, but I think it was legit. I don't think she cheated her way through high school. I don't think she did anything nefarious to get through high school, unlike her brother in dental school. But yeah, I believe it was legit.
I've told this story before. Joe, please close your ears for a moment. I could not have gotten through high school if I didn't cheat off Steve Isaacov and Pascal. That dates how old I am. I don't even think Pascal might exist. It was a computer language, and Mr. Jern, who was, may he rest in peace. I don't think he's with us anymore. He was literally the most boring teacher in the history of the world, and I just didn't understand what anything was. So thank God for Steve Isaacov, by the way, whose mom listens to this podcast. Steve's dad was a shoe salesman, not to take anything away from shoe salesmen. And Steve Isaacov is literally the smartest guy I've ever met in my life. Never got below an 800 on any standardized test, went to Princeton undergrad, and has an MD PhD from Harvard. So the guy's pretty bright. I don't get it. However, Steve sometimes has trouble like tying his shoes. So intelligence is interesting. Steve, I love you. I would say that to your face. So here we go. This is throwback to the Magbanua trial, Krista Koss crossing Wendi Adelson here.
You were in law school. You told that to Miss Kaplan. And it was a whirlwind romance, right? Right?
It was not a whirlwind romance, no.
It led to a wedding, February 26th of 2006. You had a big wedding in Boca Raton, right?
Did we get married on February 26, 2006? Is that the question? Yes,
In Boca Raton.
in Boca Raton, Florida.
The way she just re-asked the question, I kind of wanted to smack her, but here we go.
And it wasn't a small wedding. It was a big wedding.
There were many people in attendance.
All right. In this marriage, it led to 2 children, right? Your 2 boys.
Are you asking me if I have 2 boys?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to stop that for 1 second. Ben, this is bringing back bad memories seeing this again. So, Jared, I mean, I can sort of see right here why this marriage went south and why the animosity. I mean, what we're experiencing from her right now here, did you ever experience this in any way?
No, and I think that's why I say she clearly is such a good manipulator, because no, I don't think very many people at all ever saw that side of Wendi in public. There were certainly people who now have said they've seen it in private, but in public, in large groups, you never would have seen this. And that's why it's so funny. Again, I hate using the word funny, but it's so crazy when you hear all the things that she says about Danny and how he treated her and how he was mentally abusive. I am sure, and again, I wasn't there. I was not behind closed doors in their marriage, but I guarantee you that there was plenty of mental abuse coming from Wendi to Danny. Just when you watch this and you see the way she answers these questions and the things that she says and the way she says them, I guarantee it.
By the way, the COE just threw out an interesting question. If you guys want to watch some rewatch together, like almost like a watch party, certain parts of the past trials, let us know. Maybe we'll do a couple of shows leading up to it like that with some color commentary from our best guests. But I'm going to play this out. Professor Patuto will come to you in a minute or two.
Professor Markel, he was a great father, wasn't he?
He was a very good father, yes.
Those boys were his world, right?
As well as his work, yes.
And they adored him too, didn't they?
Absolutely.
Now, this marriage started to fall apart, right?
It did.
But there were problems from the very beginning, weren't there? Right?
Are you asking me, what is the very beginning? The very beginning of when we got married?
Literally at the wedding.
There were problems before we got married.
All right. So at the wedding, and the government asked you about kosher at law, right?
About what, I'm sorry?
Keeping kosher,
About keeping kosher, yes.
right?
The government
In your
asked-
wedding, at your wedding was the groom's family, the Markel family, and they are more strict than your family and friends about keeping kosher.
They do not keep kosher.
Wasn't that one of the problems in your marriage, that Professor Markel was very insistent about keeping kosher?
About his kosher rules, but those are different than his family's.
So you're saying that it wasn't a problem at the wedding, that there were people from the groom's side of the family that were there that strictly keep kosher, that they were told that it was going to be kosher food, but it actually wasn't?
So there was a misunderstanding about whether the food was going to be kosher style or more in adherence with kosher law. There was a miscommunication about that.
So
That
you had
happened.
people that strictly keep kosher eating non-kosher food, which is a big deal.
That actually is not what happened. You had, Danny was upset that it was kosher style and not strictly adhering to kosher law.
I'm going to stop it there. Joe Patuto, I'm going to leave this wide open for you, but this is definitely creating PTSD in me. And there's something about her, I don't know what it is, just an incredibly grating voice. But go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, no, I'm not an expert on kosher. compared to kosher, but
just sort of
I do think
the combative nature
yeah,
here.
no, that's true. But I do think that Lacoste here could have been better prepared to ask the questions of her, because he talked about Dan Markel's family. He should have been talking about the guests in particular. He let her get away with saying there was a misunderstanding when there certainly was evidence that it was not a misunderstanding by Donna, but she knew very well what Dan Markel wanted, and there was an agreement about it. So he could have done a better job with his questions at getting at her. I thought here it wasn't quite as bad as other places. The quibbling, I think, if she's being prepared, and I know she's being prepared by a lawyer, it doesn't seem to me that she's paying attention to their advice, because the quibbling is not effective. It grates on everyone. It grates on a jury. You might as well say yes if it's a yes. You might as well answer the question that's asked without rephrasing. When you play those games, I can't imagine anyone who finds it easy to listen to.
I should have brought Carm on for this. Carm would call this passive aggressive. That's what my dad would say too. I mean, Jared, it's like he used like the Yiddish word for kosher, which is kashrut, and she knows exactly what that is, because every Jewish person knows what that is. And she just was like, what? I mean, again, you never really saw this side of her here. I mean, because this is like, I think, the real Wendi obviously poking her head out here.
Well, and I also love how she keeps going back to kosher style.
Mm-hmm.
And again, he's not an expert on this, so he wouldn't really know to ask this question. But if I were asking that question, are shrimp kosher style?
Right.
Yeah.
They certainly are not. And we know from all indications that there were shrimp at the wedding. Kosher style is like bagels and lox or deli meats, things you'd find in a traditional Jewish deli. There was no kosher style. This was flat out anti-kosher food. And don't get me wrong, I do not keep kosher. I eat shrimp. I love shellfish. But if we were having a kosher or even kosher style wedding or type of an occasion, there would be no shrimp. There'd be no crab cakes. There'd be no pork, no bacon. That would not fall under kosher style. So I would have called her out on that as well.
Yeah, and I mean, they did that to deliberate. I mean, we all know that Dan was becoming more religious in his Judaism, and they just completely wanted to. I mean, that's not even passive aggressive behavior. That's just, I mean, this is a person that you're marrying.
That's aggressive.
Yeah, it's aggressive behavior and Donna was apparently dictating that. But I wonder, I mean, Jared, the story is always that it was Donna who did this, but you think it was really Wendi who said, let's screw him over and not have any kosher food here? Like, who's the mastermind behind the kosher? The kosher.
I find it hard to believe that there was a menu put together for her daughter's wedding that her daughter didn't see.
This will heretofore be known as Kosher Gate in the Dan Markel saga. Kosher Gate. Okay, here we go. Here's the rest of this. This is definitely bringing back. I don't know if these watch parties are a good idea. Everyone's gonna get riled up. Here we go.
So he was disappointed.
So there's problems right from the beginning.
That was a problem at our wedding. Yeah.
Fast forward now to September 10th, 2012. Professor Markel, he's away on a business trip, right?
Yes.
He's in New York City at New York University, right?
I believe so, yes.
And he's doing a presentation.
I don't know what he was doing.
Your husband at the time was in New York to give a presentation. You knew that, right?
I knew he was in New York. I didn't know if he was attending a conference or giving a presentation, but he was in New York for work.
Now, you had not communicated with him for 2 days.
Let me weigh in here as a Jewish guy. There's not a Jewish guy alive who goes on a business trip whose wife doesn't know where the hell he's going and what he's doing at exactly what time. Let me tell you that.
I can't tell you. I've never gone on a work trip and not told my wife, whether it's a conference or a meeting or I'm speaking. That's ridiculous.
Look, I'm not saying it's healthy, but I think Carm knows where I am. Look, I'm not the most non-dysfunctional person that you'll ever meet, but there's no way in hell she didn't know. Trust me. Here we go.
I really don't remember.
You text him at around 2:30 in the afternoon, right? Right before he's about to do the presentation.
I really don't remember.
But you do remember dropping the bomb on him, don't you? Telling him that you wanted a divorce.
So I did not drop a bomb on him. We'd been in therapy for several months beforehand where I told him several times I wanted a divorce.
You say it's not a bomb, but you agree with me that he begged you to reconsider.
He was very upset and yes, wanted me to reconsider, but
In that phone call, he's begging you to reconsider. Please don't leave. Please don't break up our family, right?
he was very upset, yes.
And he was heartbroken. I mean, upset indicates that there was anger. What he was heartbroken, right?
That I decided to divorce him after telling him I would, yes.
Despite being at NYU for a presentation, he rushes home. He gets on the next flight, right?
I honestly don't remember if he got on the next flight, but he did come home quickly.
2:30, he finds out in New York. By 11 p.m., he's walking in the door to your old house at Trescott Drive, right?
I don't know.
But you do know that when he walks in the house, what he finds. You know that, right?
Yes, I left him the papers.
You left the divorce papers on the bed, right?
Yes,
Half the furniture was gone.
half the furniture was not gone.
A good amount of his stuff was gone.
Nothing of his was gone.
The boys' stuff was gone, right?
Some of the boys' things were gone. I'd taken enough so that I had for the boys, but no,
You were gone,
I was gone, yes.
and so were his boys.
His boys were not gone. He saw them the next day, and they would not have been awake if he's coming home at 11 p.m.
That's the sound bite. You know how you see the Dalai Lama? You're like, he's just the sweetest guy, the most likable human on earth. She's like the exact opposite. She's like the anti-Lama. Joe Patuto, I don't know. Do you care to weigh in again on that? I mean, it's difficult to watch. There's simply, I mean, I'll say this openly. There's simply no way she didn't know the details of these trips, which makes you wonder if she didn't know the details of other things going on revolving around him.
Yeah, I think she knew. And I don't know why she did, but I'm back to, I don't know why in the world she just doesn't answer the question. Yes, I knew he was giving a presentation. I mean, what do you win by quibbling except annoying everybody? So her way of testifying is just, I don't understand it.
Well, and she
And-
said
and
she
he was
didn't
being-
remember.
I know.
She said she
I
didn't
know.
remember having a phone call with him, but then talked about the
I know.
phone call.
Exactly. And if he were better prepared, I'm going to get back to him, better prepared in asking questions, he would have had more detail about how much furniture was actually gone from the house. He wouldn't have let her get away with, took just a few things. I mean, so she's annoying me, but his cross-examination also bothers me because with more preparation, he could have done a much better job.
Yeah.
And when she gave her BS responses, having something to combat her with.
Exactly.
To your point, Joe, where she says, I didn't take half the furniture. Well, did you not take the couch, the chairs, all that stuff?
Exactly.
And she couldn't argue that. Okay, well, maybe it wasn't half, but you took a significant amount of stuff from the home. And then when she said none of his stuff was gone, I would have said, what about the Holocaust ring?
Right.
Yeah. By the way, quick programming note. Tomorrow noon, it is 4th of July. Happy birthday, America, and anyone else who celebrates their birthday this weekend. But tomorrow at noon, Dr. G Explains is coming on to break down some Brian Koberger body language, which ought to be fascinating. And Dr. G and I both have fighting that we both love. I guess it's our own passive aggressiveness, but we both enjoy that. So you probably get an earful of that, which will probably have 3 people show up to watch. But that's tomorrow, noon Eastern time. Professor Patuto, I mean, how unusual, back to the appeal, to put a ball in that, and then we'll talk about the state's exhibit list for a little bit and wind it down. But I mean, so how unusual just in general for an appeal to be kind of so focused on the role of someone who hasn't even been charged in the crime.
It's unusual, but what it probably underscores is they had no other appealable issue to raise. I mean, you raise on appeal the strongest issues you have. The fact that these are the things that were raised also says there was nothing else that could have been raised, or at least the lawyers on appeal did a really bad job if there was something strong that was sitting in the trial record and they didn't raise it. So I'm not sure how much of it, and I think, Jared, you said this earlier in a different way, I'm not so sure how much of it Is the focus on there's so much more about Wendi that the defense might have known through Katie, or that she has more to tell, as it is that they had nothing else to raise? These were their best arguments, and so these are the ones they went forward with.
Yeah, I think my biggest surprise on the appeal is that there was actually an opinion and it wasn't just per curiam affirmed.
Right.
Yeah, and by the way, this I'm just blanking on the word, heirloom. That's the word I'm looking for. The Holocaust ring is atrocious, and I've asked Ruth about this, and apparently they have never gotten it back. So that remains somewhere with the Adelson family. Joe, Wendi, and prosecutor, excellent observations. Joe always has excellent observations. By the way, Jared helps organize Justice for Dan Markel. We'll put a link into the show summary, and there's ways to support Dan Markel posthumously, so we can do that. So on to the exhibit list here. We've got sort of a potpourri of different exhibits that the state says that they're going to bring, from the next door neighbor's residence, stills from the bus, victim ID photos. We've got autopsy images, specifically face, neck, forehead, left eye. These are all coming in for Donna's trial. The vehicles and surveillance. You've got Wendi Adelson's vehicle, her driver's site, front, and receipts related to the vehicle. You've got ATM surveillance stills. That is Sigfredo and Luis stuff. You've got Charlie and Donna at Monty's. That's that little indoor beach bar where Donna's place was, where they're talking presumably about the crime in code. You've got Wendi and Katherine Magbanua at the beach, Charlie and Katie Magbanua at Sunset. You've got all kinds of digital and communication records, wire call summaries. You've got different tower dumps. One is from Sprint. You've got jailhouse calls coming in. And then you've got all kinds of financial records, including from Katie Magbanua, all these account summaries, timeline, her breast augmentation that was allegedly paid for. So, Joe Patuto, with that long, and it's not a complete list there, this is what the state plans to bring in. I know you had a chance to look at it pretty quickly, but what stood out to you on the exhibit side of things?
What struck me the most was what appeared to be information with regard to the jail informer. So if indeed it will be the jail informer, and I think there's probably good reason to believe it is, that they plan to use her, that they've got, they're going to use handwriting from Donna's ledger to demonstrate, I think, that something in the hands of the jail informer was actually written by Donna and given to her. Now that's speculation, but that's the way it appears to me.
That's it. So this is the person now, because there've been a couple of these, but this is the one who apparently Donna was trying to get to testify on her own behalf. Is that it, Joe?
Yeah, that's what it appears to be. And it may, yeah, that's what it appears to be, that it's the person she was trying to get to help her. Maybe it's related to that investigation that was done in October, started in October, with regard to the use of the phone or the watch or whatever it was, where Donna was able to be in touch with Harvey, and Harvey then was, and it was when the lawyers were in the jail, and that looks like it may also be related to this informer. It's hard to tell exactly until we see the trial, but that's what really struck me. That's what looks like is coming in.
Jared, you care to add on to that?
I agree with what Joe is saying, is that certainly is what it looks like. And I think that there's some discussion that Bernhardt, who is the suspected informant, was in jail at some point with Katie. And I don't know if this is 100% accurate. I think I read this somewhere that she may have had some interaction with Katie. So then Donna was trying to get her to say that Katie was setting up Donna to take the fall or something of that ilk. And so you've got this handwritten script that was given to this Bernhardt person, which, like Joe said, if you look at how this plays out, it looks like they're trying to prove that that was written by Donna. And then there's some sort of payment, whether that be the painting or something that was given to her. So there
Yeah.
are bad things going on.
Yeah, and you look real quick, Joe, from Miriam Sandbrand. I think the painting that Harvey gave the jail informant had cash hidden in the back of the painting. That's definitely nothing. But back to the, so this is the actual list that I'm looking at here. On this part of the, because they break the list down, but there's the bump, flyer, and letter. That's our FBI friend who's going to testify again. And then what Jared is talking about, the scan Bernhard script, who everyone
Right.
believes is the informant here. But then one of the other things that's coming in is Donna's handwriting sample. So that's interesting. That's how they're going to tie it together. I don't know. I mean, so Joe, is this potentially, I mean, this is not going to be the biggest piece of evidence, or do you think it will? Because I mean, what about the fleeing to Vietnam, all these other things too?
Well, the fleeing to Vietnam is certainly a big one, but depending on what the script shows and the connection they can make, this is pretty big too. I mean, this would be potentially evidence that Donna was trying to create a false story about Katie's involvement and getting someone to actually testify, perjure herself if she got on the stand to help her. And it seems to me that's pretty, if that's the way it comes in, it's pretty significant in terms of a trial of Donna and a determination that she's guilty. Because the one is, she's trying to flee. This one is she's trying to fabricate evidence to get herself acquitted. Those are two big, if indeed it comes in the way this evidence list suggests.
Yeah, it's so, I'm just thinking to myself while we're all talking, like, in no way do I think this is remotely true. But even if Donna was innocent, which she's not, I feel like she'd be paying off someone to make stuff up for her just to get out of the possibility of going to prison. I mean, that's how demented these people are. But Jared, you couple that with obviously that they're going to show the money trail and the payments made to Katie Magbanua, the breast augmentation, all that stuff. So then now, if you're the jurors, you're going to see all of that coupled or tripled with this about trying to pay off a jailhouse informant, essentially. So now you're really building a case, and I think the jurors are going to go, "Whoa, this woman in this family is kind of nuts. They're paying people left and right."
I've said it all along when people have argued that they don't have any concrete evidence on Donna, that you can convict on circumstantial evidence. And when you look at the totality of the circumstances here, you talk about the phone calls that her and Charlie had, particularly the ones after the bump and then also after Charlie was convicted. You look at them trying to flee to Vietnam, and this whole my lawyer told me to go clear my head or whatever. It doesn't pass the smell test. And now you're trying to fabricate a story through a witness, through a jailhouse informant. Those alone would be enough to convict her, and they have a lot more. So there's just so much out there, and we've said it a million times. I know you've said it, and Joe has said it, Tim has said it, we've all said it. These people can't stop talking and can't stop getting in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point now, as I read through this list and I see it, I feel like it's something out of Legally Blonde. Like they are just concocting things that I'm just waiting for, Elle Woods to pop up with the light bulb over her head, because it's insane.
By the way, that's one of the COE's favorite movies.
It's a great movie, and I will tell you that is probably one of the most accurate depictions of what it's like to be in law school, sitting in a law school class, is that movie. Not even joking.
Ned Smith weighing in saying best in all caps, best movie ever. Ned Smith disappeared on us for a while, but she's back, and I feel safe once again. Top Cat 88 to the professor. A couple more things, and we're going to wrap it up. It's 4 shows yesterday. I think we did 3,000 shows this week, and I'm delirious. Top Cat 88. Also, a tapped call of the informant and possibly Harvey's coming in, Joe. And we're going to hear the jailhouse calls. We're going to hear the other wiretapped calls from the FBI. But what about, I mean, this is a new one, and this is a potential bombshell because this also, I mean, Joe, this is starting to show, not to sound like Diddy's prosecution here, but it's starting to sound like a criminal enterprise here with the whole family, Joe.
Mhm. Well, I'm amazed if you think of what the case would have been against Donna, and I'm going to support what Jared just said, without what she did to make the case against her so much stronger with trying to flee the country, without regard to what she's saying on the phone calls that she knows are being recorded between her and Charlie at the jail. And now this stuff, if it turns out to be, what we think it's going to be, again, talk about trying to build, she's the best assistant or research assistant for the state that anybody could find. I mean, she's doing a great job for them. I mean, the caveat here is whether all this evidence will get in, because I assume that the defense is going to be fighting this, making an argument about whether it can come in or can't come in. They've already argued, at one of the hearings about the suggestion that the lawyers were involved. So we'll probably see some argument about that. But if it comes in, she's just helping the state right and left.
Yeah, Joe, what about this from Snap Happy? If Rashbaum, her prior attorney, knows definitively that Donna did lie to him about something, is he obligated to bring it forward as F under a client-attorney privilege?
It's still attorney-client privilege.
So
no, he's not obligated to do it.
He would only be able to come forward if he knew of a future crime that she was going to commit.
Yeah. By the way, if you appreciate the content, we've been pumping out tons of COEs, been doing amazingly well. We've got Space Coast on the West Coast, and Steve Cohen bringing in unbelievable guests, including a former Supreme Court justice from the state of Idaho who weighed in on Koberger. We had Ann Burgess on last night. You got Joe Patudo, a professor emerita. So we have the best guests in true crime, and if you like all that, subscribe. We've got a Patreon page, helps us go a long way here. So I mean, Jared, just to weigh in what I just asked Joe, and then I promise we're going to wrap it up. I mean, do you see the government? George has been meticulous, and now, and thank you to Bill Davis, by the way, here. He says Donna has the right to remain silent, just not the ability to. Gotta love Bill Davis. People here weighing in on Gia and TJ's Legally Blonde. Now I think I might rewatch tonight. There you go. Is that, what's her name? Is that Reese Witherspoon?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like her. She's in that show, the morning show on Apple, which depicts TV, especially morning news. The shows, it depicts it really well. And then you heard Jared say it's these are like caricatures, because he's saying it's like law school, but the morning show is like broadcast news in real life, which is scary. So Jared, do you think that, with this painting and maybe the intimation that Harvey's involved here, and then all the smoke surrounding Wendi that we started with, is the government teeing up potentially the next prosecution? What do you think?
I think they are always gearing toward what's next. I think Georgia hinted at that after Charlie was convicted, and she said, "Stay tuned." And then a week later, Donna was arrested. I definitely think that they are looking at other members of the Adelson family. There's no question about it. To me, the question is Harvey next or is Wendi next? And what has Harvey done throughout this process with Donna to incriminate himself even more? Because like Bill Davis said, this family has the right, not just Donna, this family has the right to remain silent, just not the ability to do it. Harvey probably falls in there too. Although I think Harvey early on was smarter than these. I think he's gotten more desperate as this whole thing has gone on. And if he was delivering a painting to someone with cash in it, and again, I don't know that that's accurate. That's rumors.
That's speculation, but it could be true.
Yeah, that would just be stupid. So who
Dumb,
knows?
dumber things have been done. We privileged few here. Donna ordered the hit, like the mobster. Charlie orchestrated the hit. Wendi facilitated the hit. Magbanua, middleman. Lewis and Sigfredo executed the hit. Harvey supported the whole thing reluctantly. And I got to say, Carm from day one says there's no way Harvey didn't know what was going on. But the saga continues. I mean, this is why this story is so big. The tentacles go everywhere. It's both fascinating and incredibly disturbing. I once said a case was fascinating to Nancy Grace. She started screaming at me, so I don't like to use that word anymore because I have PTSD from Nancy Grace. Jared is the best guest too. I always mention Jared. Jared knows I always meant, and he's from Jersey. You can't beat that. So, with that said, Jared is has a law degree from FSU. He is a lobbyist. His wife is an appellate attorney. His kid plays travel baseball and crushes it. Jared gets furious with the Yankees, as I think does Joe Patuto. That's a whole other story. But Jared, as someone who, again, knew Dan, knew Wendi, was defriended by Wendi on Facebook. I mean, how surreal is this whole thing? It's been going on for so many years for you. Are you numb to it at this point? And just your thoughts, I guess, about Donna's trial upcoming in probably less than 2 months. I haven't done the math yet. Is it less than 2? Yeah, I think it's less than
About
2
a month
months.
and a half.
Yeah.
So real quick, I also have to give a shout out to my daughter. And if you're in Tallahassee and you want to see a great show, my daughter's in Newsies at Young Actors Theater coming up in a couple of weeks. So go see that.
Awesome.
Yep, she's very excited about it. So, but I don't think I ever get numb to it because these are real people that I knew and know. Danny was just, I mean, had so much more life to live and so much more to give his kids. And especially since my kids are just around the same age as Danny's were. Sorry, there's a gnat in my house.
We're a gnat-friendly show. Go ahead.
I can't stand them. But I can't ever get over the fact that he's not there for those kids anymore, and it's all because of his ex-in-laws. So I don't think I'm ever going to get numb to it. But as we go on, it's just, to me, it's more and more about they need to pay for what they did. All of them, Harvey, Wendi, all of them need to. Donna, and those kids need to be, and they're not kids anymore. We're talking about high schoolers now, and soon, one of them will be going to college in a couple of years. They need to be reunited with their grandparents. I know, my parents are getting up there in age. I never knew my grandparents. I wish I had had the opportunity to know them. They do have the opportunity, and that time is not going to be here forever. And they need to be given that opportunity to be with their grandparents and to have those conversations and learn from them, because I've gotten to know Ruth best of all out of them, but the Markels are amazing people and have so much knowledge and so much to pass on to those boys. Let them have that relationship. It needs to happen.
100%. 100%. That's what the act is about in Florida, grandparent alienation. And they're still just not really allowed to see in so many words. And I always respect Ruth. She doesn't like this, to be discussed too much because it can interfere with her access to the kids. So I'll leave it at that. COE, there's been overwhelming demand, not for our human kids, but for our four-legged creatures that you love, even though Fred likes to mark the house up. I've just texted you photos of Fred and Ethel, not of our children. Let's see how fast you can get those up while I say goodbye to Joe Patuto, who is across the proverbial pond. I mean, Joe Patuto, if you are teaching this class to your students at either the University of Nebraska Law or the 93 other law schools that you have taught at, what would you want them to learn from this particular case, the Dan Markel case? And I hate we fall into the trap. We always, refer to the Adelsons nonstop, but it's really about Danny Markel. What would you want your students to learn from this particular legal case?
For the law student, how important it is to prepare well and to have a really good feel for the case that you need to make, the progression of evidence. And I think this case is really a very good example of, the police doing them. Nobody does anything perfectly, but the police doing a really good job of following the evidence at the beginning, the bump, the cell records, and all the stuff that they did that made this case possible to go forward. With a circumstantial case, it can be really easy if the police don't do their job at the front end, or law enforcement in general. You can't build a circumstantial case because you don't have the evidence that you need. And then on the prosecution side, having a really good theory of the case, how things need to be done, being very careful and very thoughtful about how they present evidence. I think it's an extraordinarily good teaching case for law students. And on the reverse, when I look at some of the things that the defense has done that I think have not been done well, or were ill-advised at best, that's also a very good teaching vehicle for students. So I think the whole enchilada, I might say, of the case is really a very good teaching vehicle for students about how to do things, how not to do things, what works, what doesn't work. I would frankly give them a big portion of Wendi's testimony just to show them, when you're preparing a witness, what not to do, what just doesn't sound right, the quibbling and things like that. So I think, in general, most parts of this case would be very, very good for students to watch and learn from.
There you go. A good case study. So there you go. The Dan Markel case. Before we bid adieu, I have to say, Carm calls me and she says the child she feels most sorry for in my family is Ethel Bug Johnson, because she is the sweetest but gets the least love. This is Ethel. Before I show you Fred right here, see how he's quick. Quick on the trigger, able to get these pictures up. This is Ethel. That's not Ethel.
That's not it.
That's Ethel. Look at Ethel. She has trouble getting her tongue in her mouth. It's the longest tongue I've ever seen in the history of the world. And that's her. She's just tired of life. She's tired right now of true crime. She says she needs a little break over 4th of July, so she's going to take a little time off. Fred, however, shows zero remorse, none. He will do whatever he wants anytime. He's just a hedonistic young man. Joe doesn't love dogs, so I apologize. Ethel's brother is part of. Oh my God, this is true. Ethel's brother is named Louie, and he lives in Texas. And the way we found that out is someone who watches STS Nation says Ethel looks just like my dog Louie, and we figured out they're same breeder, same day, same litter, everything. So Fred and Louie,
small world,
are brother and sister, and they look very similar. Now this is Fred. That's Fred. Look at that poor tongue. But there you go. That's Fred and Ethel. They've got their gangsta chains, which, by the way, come from Canada, Toronto, Canada. I saw there's a company up there, Big Dog Chains, who I should not give a shout out to, because they were supposed to make my collars bigger and never did, even though they said they had a lifetime warranty. But I'll still give them a shout out. Big Dog Chains, and they rock these chains. What can I tell you? I'm absolutely delirious after all this time. Would it be possible for the feds to charge Rico? That's interesting. Joe Patuto, a final question. We'll put you to work here. Could there potentially, I don't know that this is going to rise to the federal level, but what say you, Joe Patuto?
There's a federal policy called the Petite Policy that dictates whether and when the federal government will follow a state prosecution with a federal prosecution. I mean, there's a kind of a piling on and a conserving of resources. And typically the feds get involved only in antitrust cases or when there's a serious civil rights claim that's being made. Otherwise, they don't bring their own charges. And in this case, it would be, talk about piling on, if it's going to be, if Don is convicted and it's life without parole, to, just expend, even if you could, to expend the resources to do another prosecution, I think, wouldn't happen.
Joe, do you think my child, particularly my son, is going to be scarred for life? I'm the son of a psychiatrist and a social worker, but he's the son of a true crime couple. And he asks every day, he's like, oh, this is Brian Koberger. Oh, you guys are doing Wendi Adelson today. And now we have a crate in the house, not for Ethel because she's well behaved, but Fred is like a buzzsaw. He chews on everything still. He's annoying and he marks spots. So he goes in the shoe, which is the solitary housing unit. He has a sign on the cage that says, welcome to San Quentin State Prison. He has an inmate number. And now my son has trained him to go in the shoe and he does an inmate count. He counts to make sure Freddie's in there. Is he scarred for life, Joe, my son, not the dog?
I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but I doubt that sort of activity would scar a child for life. I doubt very much your son takes it as anything other than an amusing interlude in his life. And I think he's lucky to have parents who have a passion and work hard, whatever the area that parents work in, to be role models and love them. So I'm sure he's not going to be scarred at all.
Very well said. You give me a little bit of solace on this weekend. Happy birthday, America. We're back tomorrow at noon with Dr. G Explains. We don't take holidays here at STS. We're going to look at body language of Brian Koberger with Dr. G. That is at noon tomorrow. Huge thanks to Jared. What's the name of your team, Jared? What's the word?
This is the practice I have to take my son to is Little League All-Stars. So
and how's
just the Chairs Little League.
There you go. So good luck to him with his game. It is America. It is the 4th of July. It's a crazy world. So be safe. Joe, have fun across the pond. Love you, America. We'll see you tomorrow at noon. Be safe, everybody.
Bye.